everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to do a quick card share. I made this melonized unicorn, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I picked up this stamp set when they first released it. This is the Magical Friend stamp set from the Greeting Farm, and this is the first time I'm having a chance to ink it up. And then, of course, I went crazy and melonized it. I colored it up like it was a watermelon, and I absolutely love it. I'm actually going to attach the coloring process video so you can see how I colored this up. But I decided I wanted a cast card. I just doodled in some stars and dots with a clear star jelly roll pen. It's by Sakura, and that gives a great little shimmer. And for the ground for the unicorn to stand on, I just used a couple of washies from Heidi Swapp, and I hand wrote out this little sentiment. It's more like a title, and it says Lessons from a Unicorn, and I hand wrote that with my white Uniball Signo pen on black cardstock. And this all will make a little bit more sense when I show you the inside, which I printed out on my computer. I used some free fonts that had some script kind of styling that I really liked. I extended the use of the washi so that it kind of is more cohesive and is unified with the front. But basically the inside says, Lessons from a Unicorn. Number 1, there's magic inside you. 2, you don't need wings to fly. 3, it's okay to be different. 4, wishes can come true. And 5, don't make wishes when you're hungry. That's really a reference to the fact that if you're wishing for things and dreaming about things, be careful for what you wish for. It's kind of a reference to this unicorn that's colored up like a watermelon. It's a watermelon unicorn because I was hungry when I was thinking about unicorns and wishing for one. I thought that would be kind of cute. This is a card that I've made for a young friend of mine who is very ambitious, is contemplating making lots of changes in his life. And I want to be super encouraging and hope that he is successful and takes flight and just goes for it. But at the same time, be thoughtful about what he's wishing for. I'm so glad I'm finally getting a chance to use this Greeting Farm stamp set called Magical Friends. I bought this immediately when they first put it out, and I can't believe I'm just now finally getting a chance to ink it up. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink and my MISTI tool to stamp out the image. The image isn't perfectly clean, so I actually end up stamping it again before removing it from the MISTI tool and starting my Copic coloring. I'm melonizing this unicorn, which means I'm coloring it up with watermelon colors. I'm doing the mane and the tail as if it's the watermelon rind, and the rest of the unicorn I'm coloring up as if it's like the juicy, fruity part of the watermelon. And this is something that's been a coloring trend on Instagram for a while now, and tonight is the deadline for melonizing a unicorn. And I'll put a link in the description box below if you're interested in trying to participate. It's super fun, and the community there is super encouraging. So I'm doing the melonizing of the rind in these stripes that are kind of drawn in on this unicorn, so it makes it really easy to divide up in a graphic, dark green and light green coloring. And I'm using the normal flicking method for coloring in hair, even though this is, like a watermelon rind and could be smooth. I think that texture adds a lot to the image, so I'm going to go ahead and try to keep that texture and the highlights in for these waves in her mane. The Copic colors that I'm using are all going to be listed in my accompanying blog post, which I'll link to in the description box below as well. Because these areas are rather small, I'm not using the typical 3 Copic colors. I'm using 2 for each of the different stripes. So there are 2 light color greens and there are 2 dark color greens. And actually at the end, I think I even add kind of a more celadon green, which is a yellow green. I think that's 25 in the lighter area so that it pops a little bit more. And even though I'm using crazy colors, I'm still following the normal kind of shading and highlighting that I would do for hair. In the shadowed areas, in the areas where it's kind of behind the unicorn's head and at the base of the tail and underneath its chin, I'm using the darker tones. and at the part, again, the darker tones, and at the bump or the topmost part of the mane, I'm trying to leave that as light as possible so that it really looks like the highlights are hitting the hair like it would normally. After putting in the lighter tones for each of the different segments, I'm going back in with a darker tone again so that I reestablish the shadows. Sometimes when you try to do some blending, the lighter color kind of bleaches out the more saturated darker color. So going back in with the darker tone for each area is something that I normally do in all of my Copic coloring. Now for the juicy red areas of the unicorn. I'm starting off first with the palest of the reds that I'm using and kind of just going in, marking in where I think the shadows are going to be. And then I just decide I'm going to color up the whole thing with this light color, especially where the highlights are going to be. So I'm kind of doing the reverse so that I don't accidentally use a darker red where I want the lighter colors to be. Now I've decided to go in with the darkest shade of red and now establish where the shadows are going to be with this color. Underneath the front of the mane, under her chin, her back leg. So if you're looking at the unicorn from the front and back legs, meaning from forward to back, I'm coloring the back legs, not the hind legs, in the darkest red. I'm also trying to make sure that I establish the deepest shadows right around the mane because there'll be a shadow cast from her mane. Now I go through with the medium red and try to blend out from the darkest reds to those areas that I want to keep the most light. Now I'm going to go in with the lightest red, but the gap between the lightest and the medium red is so great that I'm using a tip-to-tip coloring technique. I take the lighter pen in my right hand and I touch it to the medium color red and then color with that. And when you use this coloring technique, it's important that when you put the light color marker to the paper, you're starting at a point where the darker color is so that you can blend out until the lighter ink of the marker that you're using comes out. Next, I'm going to add some watermelon seeds right on the little rump of the unicorn. I'm just going to draw 3 of them in with a black Copic multiliner pen in the 0.3 point size. It allows me to get into tiny, tiny little details like this. Next, I'm going to color the unicorn's horn with a jelly roll pen. This is a Sakura Clear Star jelly roll pen because I wanted that horn to be magically shimmery and sparkle. Lastly, I reestablished the white highlights in the eyes with a white gel pen. And that's my card. I hope you enjoy the Copic coloring video. Thanks so much for watching.